Got a pair of Minirig Mark 2s. Minirig Mini Mark 2s, I should say, because that is a full-size Minirig Mark 2 and that is a full-size Minirig Mark 3. Well, why did I get the Minirig Mark 2 when I've already got 4 subwoofers and 4 other full-size speakers? Well, look at the size. It's too damn cute to not give it at least a try. I did get a pair of them. I do like playing my stuff in stereo. However, that's £100. This Mark 3 is £140. Why would you spend £100 on that Mini, or instead of £140 on the full-size Mark 3? That was a question I was asking myself. I was just too curious not to try and find out. There is a lot of Minirig gear on this table. I did pay for all of this gear, I have to say. I've had nothing for free. I have had no heads up on anything coming out from the Minirig. I didn't know even the Mini was coming out. So there's nothing going on with Minirig. I just like the gear they come out with, and I've got a lot of it. I don't have the Mark 1 or any other speaker of this type, to be honest, that I can compare it to. But I am going to give you an attempt to give you my views on this speaker and where it stands in the scheme of things. Of course, Minirig is an ecosystem. You can combine multiple of them in a party chain or 2 of them in stereo. You can pair up different model Minirigs, and you can have the full size and the little ones with the subs. It's a whole ecosystem. You can start with one, you can have as many as you want. As with all the Minirigs, you've got 2 auxiliary inputs and outputs. They work either as an input or an output, depending on how you've got this set up. And the charger, it's a DC barrel charger, and it has been since they came out with the Minirigs. Used to say it was because of in-house design reasons, USB just didn't fit with the systems they're going with. That used to be the case. I'm not sure why it's still the case. They're clearly not going USB anytime soon. So no USB-C. What's different between the Mark 1 and the Mark 2? As far as I'm aware, there's a difference in the battery. Whether it's an improved battery or actually is a bigger battery, I'm not quite sure. My understanding is that's a 2000 milliamp battery inside there, and I assume it's at 3.7 volts. They're saying a new driver, but the same size as the old driver, 52 millimeters. Surprise to me, still 4.2 Bluetooth on the Mark 1 and the Mark 2, same Bluetooth, because I'm surprised because the Mark 3 is Bluetooth 5, but still 4.2 on the new Minirig Mini Mark 2. Still about the same weight, just over 300 grams. Minirig Mark 1 Mini and the Mark 2 Mini. It's still 15 watts. Now, still 15 watts, and they're still saying 3 hours, they reckon you'll get at maximum volume. That was the same Mark 1, Mark 2. The difference is they're saying it goes 20% louder. So same maximum battery life, but going louder. And so an improved battery is what you get. So improved hardware, but on the specs on paper, not necessarily showing any difference. You will note that the DC barrel charger is 5 volts, 0.8 amps. I know they say on the big ones you can put up to 8 volts in. Be careful, make sure you know what you're doing, although I think there's overvolt protection. But when you obviously stick that into a USB, it will come with a USB to DC barrel. That's going to come off a 5 volt and it will charge at 0.8 amps. That's not particularly fast, and that hasn't changed from the Mark 1. In terms of the sound, used to say it went from 70 hertz to 16 kilohertz. They're now saying from 65 hertz to 16 kilohertz. So they're saying a little bit more on the bottom end, bass-wise, as well as going that much louder. We'll say the Mark 3 came, and I think, as far as I remember, the Mark 2, with a nice little cover. When you pop it in and it's easy to travel and it's protected. They do a cover for the Minirig Mini, but it doesn't come with the speaker. So bear in mind, £100 speaker, £140, but that came with a cover. They'll charge you £5 for another cover to go with, you know, you're already paying £100 for the speaker. And I will say on that cover, there's a grill, so you can play the speaker while it's in the cover. That's nice. I did buy 2. Mine came with a rucksack. I don't need a rucksack. I would have been nice to have the option to swap that out for a cover. I actually expected it to come with a cover. I know it does say it doesn't come with a cover if you look very closely, but I did think it would come with a cover. For other reasons, it left me with the impression that you did. However, they were saying if I send the rucksack back, which is also going to cost me postage, they will send me the covers. But the covers are only £5 each Anyway, I will just point that out because I was disappointed it didn't come with the cover, quite honestly, and I don't need the rucksack. The option when you buy a bundle for rucksack or cover would have been nice. So let's get a quick handle on the speaker. We're going to take some measurements. I'm going to do them at 45 degrees and I'm going to do it at straight up. When I say 45 degrees, I mean with my head at 45 degrees. So recorded at 45 degrees, which seems to be the tuning. So what I call that off axis, it's pointing straight up. That seems to be the tuning, but I like to listen on axis. So I'm going to cover both of that in my frequency measurements. So you'll get a handle on what it's actually doing and why it's tuned a certain way. Frequency response measurements. So the Minirig Mini is tuned for around a 45 degree listening angle. Listening at about 45 degrees gives you this sort of frequency response. You've got a nice bass adjustment at the lower volumes, so it sounds even. By around 60% you're hitting a sweet spot, and it's rolling off after that. So after 70% it is bass light. In terms of lower bass, it's hitting a hard limit around the 60% mark. After that it's a roll off from around 200 Hz down, which means if you listen on axis, the Minirig Mini's actual frequency response, you've got a high end boost. Obviously when you listen off axis, that high end sounds a lot smoother, but on axis what's it actually doing? You've got a high end boost and a nice bass adjustment at the lower volumes. So that's the difference between on axis and a 45 degree listen. In terms of actual frequency response, if we take the sweet spot around the 60%, take the 45 degree measurements, on paper are very respectable, something like 50 Hz to 17 kilohertz. You will note it's actually rolling off from about 65 Hz, but strictly speaking, yep, something like 50 to 17 kilohertz. We're not talking bass heavy though, far from it. You'll notice from about 150 Hz down, most of that bass is below the rest of the frequency response. However, 20-40%, the bass is certainly far more prominent. It's definitely not the old smiley face signature. Minirigs certainly designed more with a hi-fi slant. So, does seem to be tuned pretty much similar to the Mark IIIs. It's the Minirig sound, it's the Minirig way. Just get on with it! Yeah, just give me a chance. So let's have a listen. Let's see what it's all about. The Minirig Mini Mark II, 53% volume.
Honey, I'm a perfect 10. What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Oh, can we switch up all the rules and imagine a utopia? Darling, I'm just so fed up with these expectations. They keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. I wanna live inside the upside down for a minute and pretend. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa. And if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to see. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. 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 Whoa. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Disgusted with myself, and I'm disgusted with the way we're told to have a certain face, a certain weight, because we aren't pixels on a screen. No, we're human.
So my first impressions. It sounds nice. It sounds really, really nice. It sounds probably remarkably nice for the size of speaker, but not for the price. My kind of bug with that is £100, £140. I'm not sure how that compares. I know you pay more as you miniaturize these things, and if you want something that small, £100 may well be good value to you. Does it sound nice? Yes. Does it sound hi-fi-ish? Absolutely. There's a sound stage which is much bigger than the actual dimensions of the speaker. There's detail. It's very clear. There's a great deal of clarity. I'm aware of a lack of bass weight. Oh, shock horror. clearly it's not a shock. You get a speaker that size, you can't, the size of that cabinet, you can't really do bass. I guess it's remarkable that they can get it as flat as they do, certainly with off-axis listening in a speaker that size. I like it. If it was 50 quid, I'd be saying, wow, I'm really happy with that. I'm really glad I got a pair of them for £100. But when I say to myself, that's £200, 2 of these speakers, then I've got to ask myself questions because of all the ways now that you can spend £100 or £200 on speakers and get some really nice sounding speakers. You've really got to want a speaker that size. If you buy this, I would say you're buying it more to do with the size than the sound. It does sound nice, it does sound clear. You can just simply relax and listen to it. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, it's because I'm in my hotel room and I want something small. I've got to say, that's not huge, is it? I know it's not quite holding your hand as the Minirig Mini is. But if you are buying mini rigs for the first time, there is a question you're going to ask yourself. Am I going to get the Mini or am I going to get the Mark III? I know I can evolve it into this whole system. My first mini rig, should it be a Mini or the bigger brother? And is there a difference in the sound? So we're going to have to compare them, aren't we? So we're going to have to say 33% comparison.
To me, I just need this to be real. I don't need no fairy tale. You don't need a killer dragon for me. Ooh, I don't need no fairy tale. Whatever it is, I keep on trying. 'Cause it ain't hard to forgive when you know what it's like. That's why I'm better with than without you. Oh, I'm on it, I want it, but why do you seem to call it your own?
What surprised me is that playing them both at the same sound step, 33%. I didn't really have to make any changes in post, so I haven't normalized them. I think because it was surprisingly close to my ears at 33%. I was expecting a big difference. I thought I'm going to leave it like that so you can hear the relative difference, and 33% really isn't that much in it, is there? And I guess because of the extra bass, you know, and the extra warmth in the Mark III, actually sounds clearer and a little bit more defined, a little sharper sounding on the Mini. So yeah, that was a surprise to me. So 66%, that's where you start getting the big roll off in the bass on the Mini. You know, the bass is there relatively to around 50-60%, and then you're getting that steep roll off. Obviously, look at the size, there's only so much they can do. 66%.
Going on, I'll be there in a heartbeat. Tell me your favorite song, I'll put it on repeat. I could wait for you forever, through the storms or any weather. Yeah, you're like New York in the sunshine. I'm a fool, yeah, I got love line. And ooh, yeah, got my heart out, and it's covered in gold. Like moonlight over Hollywood, and it's cool, yeah, 'cause you know it's good, oh baby.
drops, some raindrops. Motion got me all faded. My heart got me going.
So again, 66%, playing relatively as I recorded it, no changes to the volume in post, both played at 66%. So it's doing well in terms of actual volume levels, but clearly it's the thinner sounding speaker. This is not shocking anybody, I know, it sounds thinner. I'm just saying, if you're thinking, what is the real difference between that and that, which one should I get? You know, I want to really have this comparison answer that question. So lower volumes, there isn't much in it, 66% already we're hearing. Yeah, it's a thinner sound. I know we would have expected it, but now you can actually hear the difference. So really want to know, okay, so when we want to push that 40 watts to the maximum, just how much does it overwhelm the 15 watts of the Mini?
Oh, you came and tucked your way into my heart. Oh, you look at me in ways I never loved. With you I know that this is all, so I don't need to take it slow. If you want me, then I believe that there's a simple remedy. We don't need no miracle, I think we've seen it all, just make the call. I'll come running over. We don't need no miracle, it's unconditional, just make the call, and I'll be yours. I'll come running over. We don't need no miracle, it's unconditional, just make the call, and I'll be yours. Don't need a miracle. Need a
So yeah, no real competition when it comes to playing at maximum volume. This isn't a speaker, you know, to party out with. This is a speaker for a really nice listen at lower volumes. So summing up those volume steps, the 33% sound signature's actually quite similar. The big difference, of course, the Mark III, near 5 decibels heavier in actual bass terms. In this case, 73 hertz, 66%. You're seeing more of that bass roll off now on the Mark II compared to the Mark III. The difference is quite a bit more stark. It's actually around 7 decibels bass peak heavier for the Mark III. And by the time you hit maximum volume, the difference, well, there's no bass on the Mark II basically. If you want the measurements, it's about 15 decibels heavier. Deep bass for the Mark III. Overall, about 4 dB louder, the Mark III, than the Mini. But 15 watts versus 40 watts, that may be less of a difference than you was expecting. So all my recordings have been at a 45-degree listening position. That's how most people listen to this speaker, and that's how it's tuned. But I personally like, and some other people like, listening on axis, especially when you've got two of them. I know that's for another video, but certainly when you've got two of them on axis, you're getting the very directional treble hitting your ears straight on. I prefer that kind of listen. If you go into the app, they have what they call the studio mode. And you can switch it to studio mode. What does that do? It gives you a flat frequency response. It should sound something like it would do if you listened off axis at 45 degrees. It should be the same kind of sound, but now it's directional. So it gives you a flat frequency response. The problem I've had is when I switched it to studio mode, I'm getting this weird distortion or something, some issue with the driver, and it's kicking up a fuss, and I can't play it like that. And let me explain to you, first of all, how I've got over that. So I've got over that by playing my own custom mode to equal their studio mode. But let me first explain what I mean by those studio modes the 45 degree, the custom mode to get a studio mode. So these are all measured on axis. In default mode, the red, a big high-end lift, because when you listen off axis, what your ears hear is something more even. When you want to listen on axis with the driver facing towards you, in the app they have what they call studio mode. This gives you a flat response, listening direct on to the driver. That's the blue mode. And as you can see in the bass, when you switch to studio mode, not only does it level out that high-end boost, you get a boost in the bass. And it's a nice flat frequency response. There's a problem, however, that when you play it with the bass a little bit boosted in studio mode, I'm getting an issue where it's heavily distorted. The light is flickering from green to blue and I can't listen to it. So I have to set my own custom mode. I'm going to show you what happens and then show you what happens if I just go to custom mode and then suddenly there's no issue. It would be nice to use studio mode because they are doing a little bit more stuff in the bass to give you a fuller bass, because obviously when you have it flat on a surface you get a bit more bass. It's using the surface to create a little bit more bass that you lose when you do that, and they're compensating for it very nicely by adding a bit in the bass. I want the studio mode to work. I prefer on axis. I'm going to give you a little taste of the difference between on axis and off axis, just to say, by design, the differences are going to be small because you're trying to EQ the sound to sound just like it would do if it was left like that, except now you're having a directional speaker. Certainly nicer if you have a stereo pair. So to really get the differences here, you probably will need headphones. My comparison.
Those medical pills are pushing me over. I give my fill 3 times a day. These ethanol fumes won't make me sober. One flame to take the pain away. I caught you lighting matches in the back room. Haters look mad when they pass you. Let's talk about around when it's past due. Reach a glass, do no. You don't gotta fight it alone. You don't gotta fight it alone. Don't be so personal. Take me out of the road. I'm going under. Take me out of the road. I'm going under. All we love, all we done is just sit around wasting our time. Take me out of the road. I'm going under.
So if you put your headphones on, I hope you heard the difference in imaging. There is a difference. It's sweeter to me. It's sweeter on the ears when you've got the directionality. You're getting a bit. I know it's a mono speaker, but there is a little bit more going on in the imaging. It's a slightly bigger sound stage. To me, that's the main difference, because you shouldn't really be hearing much difference if you're tuning it the same on axis as it would be to the way they've tuned it off axis. So my roundup, my conclusion, well, I've basically already said, I think it's a really nice speaker. I am aware of after 60 off, about 60% onwards, you know, a lot lacking in the bass department, but that's not going to be a shocker. It's just that it's £100. So how much are you willing to give up compared to what else you could do with £100 to get a speaker this size? So to me, it's all about, do you need a speaker that size? If you don't, then you could get the Mark III. So I do like them. I am happy with them. I just don't want to pay £100. If I'd paid £100 for the two, I know they've got to make money, and it costs money to miniaturize these things. I'm just saying, this is my opinion. I'm just putting it out there. It's a really nice speaker. It's got to be worth £100 though to you to get something that small. I haven't got anything else like that. It's by far the lightest speaker that I've got, 300 grams. It is light, hand holdable, still won't go in your pocket, not literally anyway. But if I had the cover, it could certainly hang from a belt. You know, I thought £5. Yeah, they could have bundled it. I don't know, you know, they bundle it with the Mark IIIs, but not the Minis. I don't know what else to say. It's really nice, but obviously you're giving up some base weight to gain something that's quite small and sounds still quite hi-fi-ish. So I hope you got something out of my video, and thank you for watching.
UK